Hi, it's Menno, and in this video we're going to look at two different British comedians and their very different takes on gender woo, particularly if we should go along with it. One is Ricky Gervais, who seems to be calling it out for the madness that it is, although I'd like to see him go a bit further, while the other seems to position himself as if he's some kind of trans savior, to the point of being quite hysterical about it.
Fuck Ricky Gervais!
And that is Nish Kumar. Let's start with Ricky and a clip from his show Supernature. He started touring the show in 2019 and it explores the nature of being offended. So how could you not include something about
Trans people!
The clip is very short, just 1 minute and 12 seconds, but it manages to pretty much expose the fuckery that's right at the heart of gender identity politics, which I very much consider to be a pretend civil rights movement. Here he is.
Oh, women. Not all women. I mean the old-fashioned ones. You know, the old-fashioned women. Oh, God. You know, the ones with wombs. Oh. Those fucking dinosaurs. Oh.
Okay, so actual women, female humans.
But not all women have wombs!
He's just using the word womb as shorthand to refer to the female sex. So what other type of woman is there?
No, I love the new women. I know the new women. They're great, aren't they? You know, the new ones we've been seeing lately. The ones with beards and cocks.
Oh hey, Alex Drummond.
But I'm also widening the bandwidth of how to be a woman. So you're curious about the beard hair?
They're as good as gold. I love them. No, it's the old-fashioned. And now the old-fashioned, they go like, oh, they want to use our toilets.
I love how he went there in just 30 seconds.
Why shouldn't they use your toilets? For ladies. They are ladies. Look at their pronouns.
Gender identity pronouns. We're asked to play along with them and not think about them too much. Just be kind, right? Except that it's not about being kind. It's about compliance. And this specific use of pronouns is a way to police if we're willing to let go of reality or not.
What about this person that isn't a lady? Well, his penis. Her penis, you fucking bigot.
That's it. You better play those pronoun games or they'll come for you. And you can't just play along a little bit. You have to go all the way at all times. Even Owen Jones, gender woo-woo cheerleader extraordinaire,
Stand by your trans.
found out this week that nothing is ever enough and got told to
Do better, you vile fuck!
okay. Back to Ricky.
What if he rapes me? What if she rapes you? You fucking turf whore.
As I said, you have to go all the way. Everything else has to take a back seat, even in the worst imaginable scenarios. Just check out this tweet by one of those new women.
Literally 100% of trans people could be convicted rapists, and that still doesn't actually justify excluding us from the proper restroom.
That's why I call it a pretend civil rights movement, because it's not about equality. It's about demands and privileges that can only be gained by overriding the rights of others. And that way,
Trans!
can reign supreme. Now, if you think I'm being a bit dramatic here or I'm taking it too far, I'm not. Here are 3 examples of how the trans supremacy is manifesting itself in the real world, here and now, through policy and official guidance. 1. The media reporting on men committing crimes as if they are women, like the one who raped a dog. This article does not mention the word trans anywhere, just woman. Or the one who exposed his penis in public.
Her penis, you fucking bigot.
Again, the article doesn't even mention the word trans anywhere. Or the one who shouted, "Kill all the Muslims," and started undressing on a train. Again, the article does not mention the word trans, just woman. These are not women's crimes. 2. A woman in court being told by a judge to refer to her male attacker as she, her, practically asking her to lie under oath. 3. A A woman who was raped on a single-sex NHS hospital ward being told she hadn't actually been raped because a rapist is a bloke with magical lady feels. If you go along with gender rule, even, through the use of these innocent little gender identity pronouns, you can't argue against any of these things. Which is why I say stick with pronouns based on sex, not gender. Gender identity pronouns are the first step on a slippery slope to insanity. Don't do it. So, that was Ricky. Just 1 minute and 12 seconds. As soon as it was released on Netflix, he was accused of
transphobia,
which proves exactly the point that he was making. You can't question anything to do with
Trans people!
in any sort of way without being called a
Fucking bigot!
or a
vile fuck.
The man who seems to be completely missing that point is Nish. Here's an audio clip from his 2018-2019 show, It's in Your Nature to Destroy Yourselves. While Ricky's show looked at the nature of being offended, Nish explores mankind's capacity for self-destruction. And he kind of sounds like he's about to self-destruct himself. Here he is.
It's a fucking piece of shit! The first 10 minutes are shit comedy. No judgments, we've all done that. Some of us are doing it right now. But then the next 10 minutes is just him having a go at trans people. Guys, why is everyone so angry with trans people?
How long have you got?
What did they do? There's like 12 of them!
There's a few more, but let's just start with 12 and look at what they did. Taking women's places in women's sports, even though they are male and very much retain physical advantages because male. Duh. And I don't care if the rules allow it, those rules are wrong, and these three should have just shown some proper sportsmanship and said, you know what, instead of being selfish pricks, we'll leave this to the ladies, we can still compete in the men's category, or you know what, we can campaign for our own. Nish, what would you say is fair? Taking spaces on women-only shortlists created to get more women into politics.
And isn't it ironic?
Do you think this is fair? Campaigning against women-only shortlists, and successfully so, because being a woman, it's all about the bulge, Do you really think this is fair on women, Nish? Campaigning for a women's rape shelter to lose funding. Do you think that's fair on the women who need those services? And again,
Trans people!
could campaign for their own, just like women had to. Taking pictures of your erection in a women's rape shelter and boasting about walking around while pitching a tent. There seems to be a theme here, don't you think? Lying about your sex to take a woman-only job at a women's rape shelter. Oh, and calling women who have been raped bigots if they want to access services in a female-only space. What an arse. Asking to be transferred to the women's prison and then sexually assaulting female inmates. Putting a beauty salon out of business after suing them after they didn't want to wax his balls.
Her balls, you fucking bigot!
This salon was run by South Asian women who, for religious reasons, couldn't touch male genitalia. Or do balls become female when you change your pronouns?
Look at their pronouns!
Is that how it works, Nish? Writing a really reductive book about what it means to be female and arguing that basically it's about getting fucked. And I quote, "Getting fucked makes you female because fucked is what female is." Now maybe you're happy for the women in your life to be described as nothing but fuckholes, but I think it's derogatory, I think it's dehumanizing, and I think it's demeaning, and probably says much more about this person's own sexual fetishes than anything else.
They're as good as gold, I love them.
And you know what? Here's a bonus one. Telling lesbians they're
Transphobic.
for not accepting dick into their lives. Yes, really. And he also competes in women's sports.
There's like 12 of them! Why is everyone so upset?
Well, start with those 13 and hopefully they'll give you some clues.
Everyone's like, oh, do you say he or she? I don't know, ask! It's not an unsolvable conundrum!
That's not what it's about. It's about having the right to not be forced to go along with an ideology that you strongly disagree with. And being made to lie, basically.
Also, in my experience, trans people are not deliberately mysterious when you do ask. It's not like you ask and they go, ooh, ooh, I'll never tell!
Yeah, it'll be more like this.
It is ma'am.
You're thinking of poltergeists!
No, just a very real assault on women's rights, on the rights of lesbians, on the rights of gays, 12-year-olds having gender-affirming double mastectomies in the States. Yes, that's happening. If you don't believe it, here's a link. The horror stories we're hearing from an increasing number of detransitioners. Many who realize they're just lesbian or gay. It's just that now they no longer have wombs or balls. Not exactly a phantom menace, Nish. But let's just look at your question.
Do you say he or she?
And use an actual case. Here's a guy called Martin, a serial sex offender. He once dragged a 15-year-old girl to some derelict land and raped her at knife point. Question for you, Nish. If she had said at the time, excuse me, but actually my pronouns are he, him, do you think that Martin would have stopped his attack?
Look at their pronouns!
And if not, why not? After 9 years in prison, he announced that he was, in fact, a woman, chose the name Jade, and was accepted on the prison's transgender pathway. So what pronouns do you suggest his rape victim should use?
It's not an unsolvable conundrum!
Do you now expect her to use she and her? And if she calls him Martin rather than Jade, would you take issue with her dead naming him?
Her!
Because if you're saying that she doesn't need to call him she, her, because of what he did to her, that would be transphobic because, you'd be invalidating the trans identity, no matter, what the person does. That should be irrelevant.
If Hitler was trans, I'd still call her she. It's just a principle thing. Monster or not.
Or do you think that she can use he, him when she refers to when the attack took place, but then has to use she, her for whenever she refers to him, post I'm a lady announcement?
I don't know, ask!
Hi, remember me? Remember what you did? I just want to know what pronouns would you want me to use for you? Either way, she wouldn't be able to ask, never mind if she'd want to or not, because he topped himself in 2017. Anyway, let's continue.
And there are a lot of people, to be fair, most of them cisgendered heterosexual men
Cisgender is sexist, regressive bullshit.
who say things like this. Oh, if you let trans women use women's bathrooms, then they'll do sex attacks.
Yeah, because that never happens. Katie Delatovsky, Michelle Martinez, and here's Mark Lazarus. Now, he's a crossdresser, apparently, but how can women and girls tell the difference when, you're not supposed to ask, because that's
Transphobic.
And we're being told that crossdressers fall under the trans umbrella anyway. I'm not sure why you're saying that it's mostly heterosexual men, because women have been ringing the alarm about this for years. But maybe you're only paying attention to men? Is that it? Even so, what is wrong with men caring about the safety of the women in their lives, their wives, their mothers, their daughters, their grandmothers, especially in places where they can't protect them? Is that really such a weird idea?
Now, there's a few problems with that. Firstly, to be fair, they don't say do sex attacks. Secondly, trans people are overwhelmingly the victims of sexual violence more so than they are the perpetrators of it by an unbelievably large amount.
One, the ones that are the perpetrators, they tend to target women. And how do you expect women and girls to be able to tell the difference between someone that you might think of as
Trans people!
and someone who's just pretending to get access to women's spaces? Like how?
How can you tell me I'm not a transgender? No, you're not. Don't tell me I'm not a transgender, because I am a transgender.
2. How much of the sexual violence committed against
Trans people!
is done by women?
I mean the old-fashioned ones, the old-fashioned women.
I think you'll find that sexual violence is perpetrated by men. On that note, men with magical lady feels don't seem to lose their propensity for male pattern violence, just as men in women's sports can't identify out of the physical advantages that they have over females. Because how you identify does not define reality. There does, however, seem to be a difference between men committing crimes and men with magical lady feels committing crimes. Just look at these stats from the Ministry of Justice. The percentage of men in prison for sexual offences is roughly 18%, but when you're looking at men who claim to be women, it's a minimum of 60%, which appear to be echoed by these stats from the States. So here we're looking at 50% of men with magical lady feels are in for sex offences compared to 11% of the general male population. And if you're concerned about
trans people,
and you want to keep them safe from sexual violence, that's all very lofty, but it doesn't mean you can just demand women accommodate them in their spaces. Like, why do women always have to budge by default?
And thirdly, do you honestly think if there is someone out there willing to commit a sex attack, arguably the worst thing one human being can do to another, do you honestly think if there is someone out there, regardless of their gender identity, who has done the logical gymnastics required in going into thinking that you can perpetrate the worst thing one human being could do to another, do you honestly, do you think they're currently being put off by a sign on a door?
Predators usually aren't, no.
This has never happened. Oh, I'm gonna do such a big sex attack. What's gonna be the biggest sex attack? What's gonna be the biggest sex... Oh, sorry, I didn't realise this was the ladies. That's never happened!
Is that really your best argument to just let any Tom, Dick and Harry into women's spaces just because they call themselves Thomasina, Rochelle and Harriet?
Fuck Ricky Gervais! Fuck Ricky Gervais!
No, fuck you.
Because what he's doing is not edgy or interesting.
Actually, Ricky was pretty spot on, especially in showing how women aren't being listened to by guys like yourself. Duh.
He seems to think that it makes him an edgy or interesting comedian. It's not.
No, Ricky's just showing what's going on. He's not making any of it up. Anyways, what about you? You're trying to position yourself as some kind of trans savior? I mean, there may be a vacancy now that Owen Jones is getting it in the neck.
All he is just the same as every other rich white dude comedian who gets too successful, runs out of ideas, and shows a shit on the latest minority group.
Or maybe he's just got a point.
In the 1970s, that was my fucking family. It was black and minority ethnic people. In the 80s, it was gay people.
There was a bit more to it than just the 80s, you muppet.
Trans people are just the latest to get it in the neck from comedians who can't be bothered to try at their jobs anymore.
And of course, he didn't mention the women's liberation movement because, you know, women.
Oh, women. Oh.
But I wonder how Nish feels about a white man identifying as Indian. You know, we've had a white man identifying as a Filipino woman, so why not? And with the man identifying as a Filipino woman, would he affirm that man as a woman, but not as Filipino? Because, like, that wouldn't make sense.
And it's crazy that this article, you know, the woman who wrote it, Evelyn, she obviously wrote it because she doesn't agree with it. She puts transracial in quotation marks and she says, please, not this again. Even saying,
Pursuing happiness is one thing. Claiming an identity that isn't your own is another.
and yet she's so happy to give away woman. Because again, it doesn't even say trans woman or man who identifies as transgender or transsexual woman. No, just woman. Have it. Here. It's yours. But you can't have Filipino. Stingy Evelyn.
Where is the line for what's acceptable in terms of how you self-identify and what others should accept? I hope these questions aren't too... The classic mistake that Nish makes, as so many others do, including plenty of gay men, is assuming that the trans movement is somehow the next logical frontier in human rights. It is not. In fact, I believe that it makes a mockery of all the human rights movements that we've seen by trying to rewrite, not just for them, but for every single human on this planet, what it means to be male or female, or both, or neither. This is what trans looks like.
Trans will have you believe that this is a woman as much as your own mum. That this is fairness in sports. That glorifying the amputation of perfectly healthy breasts in marketing campaigns is a good thing. That this is a lesbian. That girls can become gay men.
Nish, if you care about the gays, then how about you spare a thought for us? And how we are, against our wishes, being redefined from homosexuals to homogenderals. How lesbians are told to accept girl dick and gay men to accept vaginas and vulvas, lest we be called genital fetishists, transphobes, or a
Fucking bigot.
Or maybe you're partial to a bit of girl dick, who knows? And as you put it in your mouth, you say to yourself, no homo, no homo. I mean, I know it's a dick, but...
Look at their pronouns.
I cannot stand there and watch another dogshit comedian go, ooh, if a woman can identify as a man, maybe I'll identify as a chair. Why don't you identify as a good comedian, you hack motherfuckers?
And here Nish destroys his own argument. So what if Ricky identifies as a good comedian? Is that gonna make Nish like the show better? Oh, I don't know why I got so angry earlier. It's hilarious. Of course he won't. Because how somebody else identifies doesn't change how you perceive them. which is exactly the problem at the heart of this so-called trans rights movement, and which Ricky portrayed so well.
What about this person that isn't a lady? Well, his penis. Her penis, you fucking bigot!
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video, or maybe even in Bristol on the 19th of June. Ciao, ciao. To all my PayPal and Patreon supporters, thank you so very much. Special shout out to my big spenders, Helper Open, Mama Turv and the Turvan Teens, Dark Horse, The Lovely Mary, Me Julie, Julia, JPH, Lindy Lou, and Stephanie. Thank you.